So it's finally here, my most anticipated movie of the year, The Batman. The Batman. Now, The Batman is acted by Matt Reeves, and basically the film follows Bruce Wayne, aka the Batman, this time played by Pattinson, who's basically struggling with his mental health. He's not the person he wants to be, and nobody in Gotham really respects him. That is until the Riddler, this villain who's killing people, big people in Gotham, and leaving riddles behind, starts striking and starts making noise and starts trying to get towards Batman. And so Batman teams up with Commissioner Gordon and Selina, aka Catwoman, to try and stop the Riddler before it's too late. But along the way, they face problems with Falcone and also with the Penguin. And that's basically the plot of The Batman. And just before I get into my feelings and thoughts on this movie, I should say, this is my most anticipated movie of the year. This was my most anticipated movie of 2022. You know, if you go back to my live streams at the start of the year, I was always talking about The Batman. I was so excited about it because Matt Reeves, the director of the film, he's a great director. He directed the first Cloverfield film, which I really like, and he also directed the latest two Planet of the Apes films, you know, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes and War of the Planet of the Apes, which I was also huge fans of. And I couldn't wait to see his vision of a Batman world, his vision of Gotham. I just couldn't wait to see that. And also, I couldn't wait for a new Batman story. I didn't mind Ben Affleck as Batman. I actually think he did a good job. The thing is, though, I just never thought the character that he was playing was written that well. And so I always wanted, like, a proper Batman movie with all these classic villains. Like, we have touched on these classic villains before, like in the Christopher Nolan Dark Knight trilogy, which I'm a huge fan of, and also in the Tim Burton Batman movies, which, you know, I don't mind. I'm not the biggest fan of Batman 1989, but I do actually really enjoy Batman Returns. But the thing is that we've touched on these villains before, but in the past, especially in the Tim Burton era, when it goes to Joel Schumacher with Batman Forever and Batman and Robin, you know, the villains become a bit comical. And then the Christopher Nolan Dark Knight trilogy, as good as it is, you know, the villains don't want to feel like villains. You know, sometimes that was really good in those films, but also sometimes it wasn't always the best. And it didn't always feel like Batman in those movies. I love the Christopher Nolan Dark Knight trilogy, I do, but it didn't always feel like Batman for me. And I was just so excited about this idea of having a Batman movie with the Penguin in, with Catwoman in, with the Riddler, with Commissioner Gordon, with Falcone. I was so excited about it. And to be honest, I've never ever read a comic book in my life. I've never read a Batman comic book. But the thing is, though, I was just so excited about having a Batman story with all those classic characters. And then when I heard that all these classic Batman characters were going to be in this movie, my level of excitement just went up like that. Honestly, I was so excited to see this movie. I really, really was. I couldn't wait to see a new Batman story. I couldn't wait to see a new Batman story in the cinema as well, because it's the first Batman film that I saw in the cinema. And so yesterday, I finally saw it. I saw it on the day it came out, because I'm actually filming this video on Saturday. I saw this film last night, and honestly, I'm sorry to disappoint. I absolutely love this movie. Honestly, it's so good. And I couldn't believe it was as good as it was. Because the thing is, though, I seen it last night, and when I got to the cinema, I was a bit shell-shocked. I was a bit like, wow, I didn't expect a movie like that. But the thing is, though, the more I think about it, the more I listen to the soundtrack, and the more I just think about the film and all its nitty-gritty aspects, I love it. I really, really do. I think this might possibly be the best Batman movie yet. And I don't say that lightly. I love the Christopher Nolan Dark Knight trilogy. I love those films. I even love Dark Knight Rises, which is a bit controversial. But the thing is, though, this movie is so good. Honestly, I could not believe how good this movie was and how stressful it was watching as well, because this is such an intense thrill ride. You know, I can say that about some other films recently. I could say that about, you know, Nightmare Alley, a film which I liked quite a lot. But the thing is, though, I found this film more intense than Nightmare Alley. By the way, that's not a knock on Nightmare Alley. I love that movie. But the thing is, though, this film for me, I was watching and getting to the third act, and I was literally like this. I don't know what's going. I was gripping the edge of my seat, and I was so intense, but in the way you want to when you're watching this movie. Honestly, it's fantastic. It really is, and I love it. I'm getting so excited to think about it now. I love it. I love it when I go and watch a film that I'm so excited to see. Like Last Night in Soho last year. and I just get so excited about seeing it, and then I get a bit worried when I'm in the cinema. Will it live up to my expectations? But you know what? Like Last Night in Soho, which turned out to be my favourite movie of 2021, The Batman is just brilliant. The Batman exceeded my expectations, and I had some pretty high expectations going in. I really did. You know, Matt Reeves, terrific filmmaker. I really hoped he was going to do well, and he blew it out of the park. Honestly, Matt Reeves' crafted such a fantastic Gotham, which is just, it's his own character in this movie. Like, that's one of my issues with the Tim Burton Batman movies and the Christopher Nolan Batman movies as well. As much as I do like some of those movies, you know, especially The Dark Knight, especially Batman Begins, as much as I do like those movies, it never really feels like Gotham's a character in those movies. Whereas you watch The Batman, and Gotham's like its own thing. You know, you don't know who's hiding behind what street in Gotham. I really like the gritty feel of Gotham. I like the fact that it's always raining, and I also love the fact that it's always dark in Gotham as well. You know, it's quite a lot of sunset shots, which are beautiful in the film, by the way, but it's quite a lot of sunset shots in the film. And you're watching them, and it's like there's a glimmer of hope, but then suddenly in the next shot it's raining and it's dark, and you're all in for it. It's so incredibly well shot. The way it was shot reminded me of the film Seven, you know, the David Fincher film, which I'm a huge fan of. And by the way, I will be talking about Seven a bit more later in this review, but yeah, just the way it was shot reminded me of Seven. I just love the aesthetic and look of the movie, and the fact that Gotham feels like its own snivelly, mischievous character lurking in the background in every single scene. I love that about this movie. I really do. And I just think Matt Reeves has crafted such a fantastic world in this Batman film. I just think he's done such a great job. Because the thing is though, a few people have been criticising the length, the runtime of this movie, because it almost clocked in at 3 hours. It's not exactly 3 hours, but it is like 2 hours 56 minutes. And first of all, I never felt like it was 3 hours, by the way. I felt like it was 2 hours at a push. Honestly, the movie ended and I went, wow, that was 3 hours? It did not feel like it. It felt like 2 hours, and that's at a push. Honestly, I would even argue that it didn't even feel like 2 hours at one point. But anyway, yeah, the movie's about 3 hours, and it's got some criticism for that. But, you know, if I was Matt Reeves, and I was given complete creative control over a project, over an IP like The Batman, you know, I would make a 3 hour movie. It's kind of the same way I feel about Zack Snyder's Justice League. You know, we had a theatrical cut of Justice League back in 2017, but then Zack Snyder got his chance to release his own cut of Justice League last year, and in doing so, he made a 4 hour movie, and some people went, this movie doesn't need to be 4 hours, but at the same time though, I would argue that if I was Zack Snyder in that situation, I would make the longest movie possible. There's not many chances that Zack Snyder is going to be able to make a 4 hour cut of Justice League. It's a once-in-a-lifetime thing, and you know what? I love that he did, and I love that also about this movie. I love the fact that Matt Reeves went to Warner Bros., and this is true, by the way, well, as far as I know it's true, but the thing is, like, Matt Reeves, he went to Warner Bros., who obviously own the IP of Batman, and he said, I want to make my own Batman movie, but in doing so, I want complete creative control. And in doing so, look, he made this big 3 hour Batman epic, and I love that. You know, if I was Matt Reeves, and I could make a 3 hour Batman movie, I bloody well would. And the thing is, oh, that's what he's done here. And I just love the fact that it feels epic, but also that it feels like a detective noir thriller. And we'll be getting onto that again a bit later. And also the fact that it just feels so atmospheric. Honestly, it's almost 3 hours, and it doesn't feel like that. But the whole time, you're just immersed into this world of Gotham. I'm getting so excited just thinking about it now. Honestly, the more I talk about the movie, the more excited I get about it. Honestly, I don't know if you can tell in my voice, but I'm just so excited about this movie. The thing is, though, like, I just love how atmospheric it is for the entire runtime. For the entire runtime, you never feel like you're in anywhere else but Gotham. And I love that about this movie. And also, I absolutely adore the Michael Giacchino score. And the thing is though, I'm a huge fan of Michael Giacchino. I love his score for the Incredibles movies. I love his score for the recent Star Trek movies. I love his score for Doctor Strange. I love his score for the recent Spider-Man movies. I love his score for the recent Planet of the Apes movies. I love his score for the recent Jurassic World movies. And I love his score for Rogue One as well. But honestly, I think his score for this movie, I think his score for the Batman might quite possibly be his finest work today. Honestly, Michael Giacchino's score for this movie is incredible. It heightens emotion in so many scenes in the way the score should, but at the same time, no, elevates the film to something that is just so unique and just so distinctive. Honestly, there's so many scenes where I was gripping the edge of my seat, and not because of what was going on in front of me, but simply because of the musical score. Honestly, Michael Giacchino just keeps getting better and better and better. and his Batman theme here is incredible. The Catwoman theme sounds like something out of a James Bond score. In fact, it actually sounds better than anything Hans Zimmer wrote for the No Time to Die score. And then you also get the Riddler theme, which sounds like something out of Cloverfield. It sounds like a proper horror theme, and it's just fantastic. And honestly, every single ounce of the score in this movie is brilliant. I've been listening to it non-stop on Spotify since I've seen the movie. It's just, I think it's Giacchino's best work today, and I'm a huge fan of his work. I absolutely love some of his earlier scores, and I love his score for Rogue One as well, which was criticised when it came out because he had 4 weeks to do it, but I love his score for Rogue One: A Star Wars Story. But honestly, I do think this is his finest musical score today. Honestly, it's incredible. It really is. And Giacchino, ooh, he really made me feel like I was in Gotham when I watched this movie. He really did. And I just think the music for this movie is absolutely incredible. And at the same time though, the performances are all great as well. You know, there's not one weak link in the bunch. He's probably still not my favourite Batman. That would probably still be Christian Bale, because I remember watching The Dark Knight at quite a young age and thinking, wow, he plays Batman fantastically. But the thing is though, I do think Robert Pattinson does a great job. You know, Robert Pattinson is a terrific actor, because when I knew he was cast as the Batman, I went back and watched some of his early work, and he's brilliant in Good Time. That is such a good film, by the way. And he's also brilliant in The Lighthouse, a film which I didn't really get. Maybe I have to go back and revisit Lighthouse, but he is terrific in that movie. And he also out-acted everyone in Tenet, a film that the more I think about it, the more I don't really like anymore. But still, he's brilliant in that movie. And he's great here. He perfectly encapsulates the Batman that this film fits. You know, Christian Bale perfectly encapsulates the Christopher Nolan Dark Knight Batman. And then, you know, Michael Keaton perfectly encapsulates the Tim Burton Batman era. But Robert Pattinson perfectly encapsulates the Matt Reeves Batman that is written into this movie. Honestly, he's so good. And yes, I would have perhaps liked seeing a bit more range between his version of Bruce Wayne and his version of Batman, but that didn't hugely bother me when I was watching the movie. The thing is though, you know, Bruce Wayne in this movie is meant to have mental health issues, and you really feel he does through Robert Pattinson's terrific performance. Honestly, Robert Pattinson is great in the movie. He's such an underrated actor, and everyone just goes, Robert Pattinson from Twilight. Honestly, watch Good Time, watch The Lighthouse, watch Tenet, and then watch him in this movie, and I can tell you now, you will not be thinking he's Robert Pattinson from Twilight anymore. You're thinking, oh my god, what a great actor, and what a great person they chose to play Batman, because he does a terrific job. I really enjoyed this situation as Batman, and also I think that Andy Serkis was great as, you know, Alfred Pennyworth. I would have liked to see a bit more of him, but he was in this film more than I expected at the same time though, because I read a few reviews about a week ago, and a few people were saying Alfred's not in this film that much, and I kind of wish he was. And then he was in the film quite a bit actually. He's in like 6 key scenes, and he's really good in those scenes actually. There's one scene in the hospital, not to give too much away here, because I'm trying to keep the review spoiler free, but there's one scene in the hospital between Alfred and Bruce which really works for me. Honestly, it kind of felt emotional in a great way. But yeah, I do think Andy Serkis plays Alfred fantastically. Again, he perfectly fits into this world of the Batman. He really does. And then there's also John Turturro as Falcone. I forgot the character's first name was, but he plays that character fantastically. Honestly, he doesn't look like Tony Soprano, but he did remind me of James Gandolfini's, you know, performance as Tony Soprano in Sopranos. Just the way he was and the way he played that character, and the things you find out about him in this movie really surprised me. I love the twists and the turns of that character. Again, I forgot the first name of the character actually. It's Summit Falcone. It's like, I'm going to look it up. Give me a sec. That's it. Carmine Falcone. That's why I kind of remind him of Sopranos, because actually Tony Soprano's wife in The Sopranos, it's called Carmine. But anyway, nevertheless, it kind of reminded me of Sopranos. It kind of reminded me of the Tony Soprano character, just the way he played that, and the way that it's just so dominant in this movie. Honestly, every single time John Turturro's in this movie, you'll watch him and go, I don't want to mess with him. And he isn't even the Penguin. He's Carmine Falcone. And I played that character fantastically, and I love the way they wrote that character in the movie as well. You know, like I said before, he's like Tony Soprano, where he's kind of got connections, and you don't fully realise it until things happen later on in the movie. Not to get too much away there, but I love the way they wrote that character. And also, you know, going on to more performances, Colin Farrel is fantastic as a Penguin. Honestly, everyone said it already, but I'm going to say it again, he's completely unrecognisable. You know, Colin Farrell, which I only really know, I've got to admit, I need to watch more Colin Farrell films, but Colin Farrell, who I only really know from the first Fantastic Beasts movie as a villain, is great in this movie. Honestly, he's so good, and the way he plays the Penguin is great. I wouldn't say he's as good as Danny DeVito, but bear in mind, Danny DeVito was basically in a Tim Burton Batman movie, and I do think Danny DeVito was great as a Penguin, but also like the other performances, you know, Colin Farrell's Penguin perfectly fit into this movie. And then you get into the two best performances, in my opinion. Then you get into Paul Dano as a Riddler, which I just thought was excellent. And then you also get into Zoë Kravitz as Catwoman, which she plays masterfully. Honestly, Zoë Kravitz as Catwoman really made that role her own. I know that sounds a bit, you know, cringeworthy, but it's a truth. When you're watching her in this movie, she gives so much, you know, to that character, and you're watching her, and she's a bit sexy, and she uses that sexiness to her advantage. And you watch the way she plays that character, and it's so brilliant. Honestly, she really encapsulates Catwoman in just a fantastic way. And then Paul Dano as a Riddler is so good as well. Honestly, Paul Dano is great in films like Love and Mercy, and also Prisoners movie, which is fantastic. But then you watch him in this movie, and you just feel confident. Every time he's on screen, you just feel he's insane, but in the way you want to. It's kind of like Heath Ledger's performance as a Joker in The Dark Knight, or as Joaquin's performance as a Joker in the Joker movie. You know, every single time these characters on screen with these fantastic actors doing their performances, you just feel they're insane. And I do have a slight criticism with the Riddler character, which I'll get onto later in this review. But the thing is though, Paul Dano is incredible in this movie. Honestly, he's one of my favourite Batman villains now, just because of the way he played that character. I just thought that was so good, and I love the villain in this movie, and I think all the performances are absolutely fantastic. But the standout for me, and I think the standouts for a lot of people, are Zoë Kravitz as Catwoman, and Paul Dano as the Riddler. But then you also get into the whole feel of the movie, and like I said before, it feels like a modern day 1990s detective noir thriller. Honestly, it's fantastic in that way. You can clearly see that Matt Reeves' influences from films like Seven, and films like Chinatown, and films like Zodiac are really present here, and in just a great way. Honestly, I love Seven. I think Seven's a great movie, and there's a lot of Seven in this movie, and not in a bad way whatsoever. And also, the whole thing with the Riddler really feels like the Zodiac Killer in just a great way. And actually, Matt Reeves did say that he based the character off the Zodiac Killer, and you really feel that in this movie. The Riddler has so much presence in such a good way, and at the same time, though, it has that essence like in Chinatown, when you're watching, you know, when you're watching Polanski's Chinatown, you're watching that movie, and it's set in LA, and LA feels like its own character in the movie. And that's the same here. You know, you're watching the Batman, and Gotham feels like its own character. But at the same time, though, this film also has a bit of, you know, Francis Ford Coppola's conversation there. When you're not really sure what's going on, you really feel the insanity and the protagonist going into madness as he's trying to investigate all these riddling murders. It's fantastic in that way, and I just love the feel of the movie. You know, like I said before, it really feels like a modern day detective noir thriller, and just in such a good way. And I love that about this, because it's a proper detective Batman. And honestly, with, you know, the Batman character with Commissioner Gordon, it really does feel like Brad Pitt and Morgan Freeman in Seven. Honestly, there's a sort of big similarity there, which works for me fantastically. I love that in this movie, and I love how it's kind of like a mystery as well. I love how this movie keeps you guessing, and even I haven't really figured out everything yet. You know, I'm going to watch it later tonight, and by the way, I'm very excited to watch it later tonight, but even I haven't really figured out everything yet, and you're just watching the movie trying to guess and things like that, and like Seven, it keeps you guessing to the very end, and I love that about this movie. I love how it takes me films like Seven, Zodiac, Chinatown, and Francis Ford Coppola's A Conversation. I just love that about this movie. And also, I think the action is fantastic. You know, a lot of people have been saying this movie is quite slow-paced. I completely disagree. Honestly, I was expecting like rich, slow burn of a movie, and then I get in there, and you're right into Gotham just like that. You know, with Nirvana playing in the background, with the Nirvana song, which is in the first Batman teaser, and you're getting that song playing in the background, you're like, oh wow, I'm really in for that sort of movie. And just the action in this movie is incredible, and the pacing is great as well. Honestly, it's a really well-paced movie. But going back onto the action, there's one car chase, which I think a lot of people will be talking about, by the way. There's one car chase between the Batman and the Penguin, which is just complete, it's just complete suspense. You're gripping the edge of your seat, and you're watching and going, I don't know what's going on, but it's so intense, and it's just fantastic. And that car chase is a car chase which even Edgar himself has liked on Twitter. He's even said how good that car chase is, and you know what? I completely agree with you, Edgar Wright. Honestly, Edgar Wright's my favourite director working today, and when he praised his movie, that got me excited for it, and he even loves a car chase as well, and I can completely see why. And bear in mind, Edgar Wright directed Baby Driver, a film with so many car chases and so many fantastic car chases, and he praised a car chase in the movie, which I think is a high praise. But yeah, the car chase is actually fantastic, but also at the same time though, in this movie, when Batman's having these big fight sequences, you feel the punches he takes. That's a big praise for a comic book movie, because so many times in a comic book movie, and even comic book movies I like, watch these big epic fight scenes, and you don't ever feel like the heroes are going to lose, because it's just big CGI and the big explosions, like, right, the heroes are clearly going to win. Why are we having all these big, epic CGI fight sequences when I know the heroes are going to win? But in this film, a lot of the fight sequences are just between two people and they're kicking each other, and it's so realistic. And by the way, I'll go into realism a bit later, but it's so realistic, and you feel all the punches that Batman takes, and you feel all the punches that Batman gives. Honestly, the fight sequences are absolutely incredible in this movie, and you really feel them as well, which is such a high praise for a comic book movie. It really is. And then, at the same time though, like I said before, the film is so realistic. Honestly, the verisimilitude of the world that Matt Reeves has, and by the way, if you don't know what the word verisimilitude means, look it up. But yes, the verisimilitude of the world that Matt Reeves has created is incredible. Honestly, I could go on and on about it, but you actually feel like Gotham is a city in America. And I love that about this movie. You feel that every single ounce of it is realistic, even so it's a comic book movie. The CGI in there, and sometimes it's a tad bit noticeable, but at the same time though, it's not nearly as noticeable as it is, say, in a Marvel movie, or it is, say, in a movie like Aquaman or Wonder Woman. Honestly, the CGI just blends perfectly into this world of Gotham, into this world of the Batman. It's so realistic, and the verisimilitude of the movie just blew me away. Honestly, it actually got a bit too realistic towards the end, because I'm not going to give too much away here, but when you realise what the Riddler's plan is, and then when you realise that there might be more to it, and there might be more people involved in it, not to give too much away there, but honestly, it became a bit too plausible, and I've seen some people criticising me for that. Personally, I did not care whatsoever. I actually really liked the fact that the third actor's movie was proper realistic. Well, that's not good English, but it was very realistic, and I was sitting there going, whoo, I can actually imagine this happening. And also, the third act of the movie, by the way, has also met some criticism. Personally, I loved it because, not to give away again here, but it turned into a bit of a disaster movie. And I have a bit of a soft spot for disaster movies, so I was eating the third act of the movie up minute by minute. And that are all my big praise for the movie. But I've got to admit, I do have one small criticism. I don't mind the runtime. I don't get that criticism. And I also love the third act. I thought the third act of the movie was great. But at the same time though, my big criticism of the movie is simply the use of the Riddler character. I love the way this film brought the Riddler into it. I love the way this film writes the Riddler. I love how the Riddler fits into this movie. But I just would like to see a bit more of him. Because not to give too much away here, but this film is setting up other villains. It's setting up other characters like Catwoman, the Penguin, and Carmine Falcone, and Commissioner Gordon as well. And in doing so, it feels like it's trying to do all that and also trying to put the Riddler in as its main villain at the same time. And in doing so, I don't think it gets as much Riddler as I think the film promises. I think the Riddler is brilliant in this movie. I love every single moment he's on screen, but I just would like to see a bit more of him. That's all. I think Paul Dano plays fantastically, and I love the way they wrote the character. But I loved it so much that I wanted to see more of it. You know what I mean? I just wanted to see that character more in this movie, especially as meant to be the main villain. And also, the Riddler is kind of my favourite Batman villain. I've never read a Batman comic book in my life, like I said earlier in this review. But the thing is, though, I just think the character of the Riddler is so clever. This person who's a murderer and does all these big, criminal acts and things like that, and these riddles behind. I just love that whole idea of the Riddler character, and I don't ever think that the character's been done justice. Like, I think Jim Carrey played him fine in Batman Forever, but that version felt very comical to me. And then you get into this movie, and the Riddler feels so realistic, and he's a serial killer as well, and I just think that works fantastically, and I love the way they wrote that character. but I would like to see a bit more of him. That's all. That's like my biggest criticism. And even that isn't a huge criticism. He's great in the movie, and would like to see more of something which is absolutely fantastic in the movie. But the thing is, though, I've got to admit, I do think that they could use the Riddler character a bit more, and maybe focus him a bit more, and maybe cut out one of the other character introductions. I don't know which one, because I love the way they introduced the pen. I love the way they introduced Carmine Falcone. I love the way they introduced Selina, aka Catwoman, Commissioner Gordon, and so on and so on and so on. But I just would like to see a tad bit more of the Riddler. That's all. But saying that, though, that's not a big criticism in itself, because I absolutely adored the movie. I really did, and I just can't get over how good it was. You know, this was my most anticipated movie for this year. Now in March, and I don't really have much more anticipated movies for the rest of the year. Saying that, though, Jurassic World Dominion in June, which I'm looking forward to quite a lot. But nevertheless, this was my most anticipated movie for 2022, and I adored it. I really did. I adored that it felt like a proper Batman movie. Because like I said before, this might possibly be the best Batman movie I've seen yet. And I love the Christopher Nolan Dark Knight films. And I really enjoyed Batman Returns. But for me, this movie felt like it was proper Batman. It felt like it was a Batman that I always wanted to see. You know, Batman is meant to be dark. He's meant to be gritty. And all these people criticising the fact that, oh, the Batman's quite dark. You know, Matt Reeves has made it that way. That's intentional. The dark aesthetic and tone of the movie is completely intentional. It's like Matt Reeves woke up one morning when he was making the film and went, do you not think it made it a bit too dark? And of course he made it dark for a reason. Honestly, within the first few months of the film, you're immersed with the GG score, you're immersed with the visuals, you're immersed with the tone, and you're just in Gotham. And you know what? You're there for the next 2 hours and however long, and it's fantastic. It's great. It's amazing. And I absolutely adored it. I could go on and on and on and on and on about how much I loved it. And you know what? I have already, but I think this movie is incredible, and I think it might possibly, in fact, I do think it is the best Batman I've seen yet. Honestly, it's so good. It really is. And I'm seeing it later today, and you know what? I can't wait to watch it again. And so, all in all, I'm going to say that Matt Reeves, the Batman, I'm going to say that's a 9.2 out of 10. You know, I've given it quite a precise rating there, and that's because this was my most anticipated movie for the rest of the year. This was my most anticipated movie of 2022. But the thing is, though, I'll give it a 9.2 out of 10 because it works me on so many levels, but I just wish we got to see a bit more of the Riddler. I just wish we got to see a bit more of him, and I love the way that his plan kind of... Okay, I was about to give too much away there, but I love the way that the plan, you know, plays out for the rest of the movie, and I love the way they were that character, but I just would have liked to see a tad bit more of him. That's all. I wish we got to see a bit more of poor Dano as a Riddler, but he's great in there though, and I just think the movie is an absolute triumph. I think that Matt Reeves properly understands the Batman character, and I think that that's what makes the film work so well. You know, in the first few moments of the movie, there's all these criminals doing all these criminal acts, and basically, you know, they're all scared of the people in the shadow because you have Robert Pattinson narrating over, you know, Robert Pattinson as Bruce Wayne narrating over going, I'm always lurking in the shadows, something like that. He's like, I'm always lurking in the shadows. And they see all these criminals, and they look into the shadows, and they see the bat signal, and they're looking into the shadows, like, oh my god, is Batman going to pop up there? And they're just scared of the shadows. And Batman isn't popping up there, and then Batman first comes out in this grand way, and like, oh, you don't want to mess with him. And there's always people making fun of the Batman costume. He's just like, oh god, they're going to get hurt. And then there's violence, and the action sequences are absolutely fantastic because they're proper gritty, and they're not marvellous, and they're not like the action sequences, you know, Aquaman, Shazam, and Wonder Woman as well. And by the way, those movies which I really enjoy, there's some Marvel movies I really enjoy as well, and sometimes, you know what, I get in a bit of a mood for a big CGI action sequence, like in Star Wars, or like in Guardians of the Galaxy, or so on and so on and so on. But the thing is though, in this movie, I do think the action is done so masterfully, and honestly, it's such a good movie. It's masterful, it's incredible, it's brilliant, and it's just amazing. I don't think I've ever used amazing to describe a movie on this channel, but I did just today because I enjoyed this movie so much, and I just think it's the best Batman I've seen yet. And I just can't believe how much I adore this movie, but you know what? I'm so happy that I do. Honestly, it's an absolute triumph, and I absolutely love it. And so, all in all, I'm going to say that Matt Reeves is the Batman. I'm going to say that's a 9.2 out of 10 from me. Anyway guys, what do you think of the Batman? Please do comment down below and know your thoughts in the comment section below. Anyway guys, thank you as always for watching, and if you haven't yet, please do click down below and subscribe on this video. I look forward to many more, both film and TVs, come very soon on this channel. See you guys again soon, but bye for now, bye!